Hello, everyone. I'm Roy Cocho. Welcome back to the Integrity Project. Today, I have a special guest, Miguel Diaz, Mike Diaz, also AKA Mr. Diaz. I'm just going to give him a proper introduction here, and then we'll get started. Mike Diaz is a father, a successful mortgage broker, a man who has built his life from the inside out. But his success today was forged through one of the hardest battles a person can face: addiction. In this episode, Mike opens up, talks about this journey from addiction to recovery, from the shame to accountability, and from survival to building a meaningful, rooted life in integrity. We explore what it takes to rebuild trust, become a present father, and step into a healthy, thriving relationship. This conversation is about resilience, responsibility, and the courage to change. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you so much, Roy.
My good friend, Michael.
Yes, sir.
We've been through a lot together.
Yes, we have. I appreciate you asking to be on, and I'm honored to be here. Repaying a favor almost, if you want to say that, when you came on mine. But, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to share my story. I'm comfortable with it. I think I really, my purpose is to really, hopefully it'll resonate with some people out there that maybe are going through some struggles that they're holding in. And hopefully they'll hear some of the story and how I was able to deal with it. It's not for everyone, but hopefully that goes a long way.
Well, listen, Mike, we've known each other for a long time, and the amount of personal growth I've seen you have over the past, especially the past 3-4 years, has been incredible. So I just want to honor you for that.
Thank you.
And you know what, taking a man take full responsibility for his life and see the blessings in it is such an inspiration for most. So I just want to let you know, dude, you just keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
When you look back, what was the moment you knew you couldn't keep living the way you were? And what finally pushed you to change?
It's a loaded question when I think about it, looking back. My a struggle with addiction during that time, that struggle, I didn't really think it was addiction, to be honest. And the thing that really sort of turned it, full 180, of course, was my incident where I got hurt. Was a coma for 17 days, and then woke up. But there were triggers leading up to that event that had nothing to do with the event, but if I was maybe aware enough or present enough or being able to see it, I would have been able to take a step back. And even though I may have, to add some sort of context, I was in a relationship for a long time with a really beautiful person. It wasn't right for us. And my addiction was near the end of that relationship, was becoming too often. And, I've had several vices, but for that specific circumstance, my drug of choice was cocaine. That was, I was doing it at that time once a week, and it was getting overwhelmed. And there was I knew there was something that had to change, and I was doing it for different reasons. And so I ended that relationship. But ending that was just sort of sugarcoating the actual problem. And I although in my own head at the time, I went from once a week to once every 4 or 5 weeks and said, oh, I'm better now. When in reality is, there's so much more underneath that. And then, of course, a year after that is when that incident happened. And that incident really didn't have anything to do with the addiction. It maybe had to do with me still trying to escape or trying to feel worthy of, other people's maybe attention, other people's acknowledgement, or could have been just me being lonely at that point. And so that sort of epiphany, or that, I have a therapist, and she, I think it was just over a year after, her and I went to see her. I was chatting with her, told her about the experience. And then my incident was, somebody had pushed me or punched me. We still don't know. And I hit my head, and I had a hematoma. And she said to me, she starts laughing. She goes, "Oh, Mike, I don't mean to be laughing, but it's so funny. You know what they say? You got to get hit in the head to wake up." And yeah, I guess you do when you're supposed to.
Did you feel at time too, you're kind of addicted to not just and everyone can be addicted to substances, right?
Right.
Cocaine,
Right.
alcohol, cigarettes. But maybe part of you was addicted to significance because
Yeah.
knowing you back then, you're a really big personality.
Yep.
Like you like had to be the loudest guy in the room.
Yep.
Um, you like to get a certain amount of attention and like whether, and the funny thing is, no matter what you did, whether you're gambling blackjack at a blackjack table or just sitting around, you always like the loudest guy in the room. And you feel that part of your addiction was one, be significant to everybody else around you and wanted the attention for people?
Yeah, for sure. For my own, to feel better, right? Like it's, and I listen. I'm an outgoing guy in general, but yeah, like I think, it's funny how you believe you need something or need to be significant in an environment to be noticed. Um, in my case, it was all got to be loud. People can see me. Oh, they'll like me if they see me do this or that. Um, and that's you know something you have to come to terms with. And again, it doesn't matter, uh, you know, what you try and do if you're not taking your own accountability for an understanding of this is something that I need to pay attention to, or this is something why I'm doing these things. Then yeah, but you're right. Like it's not the addictions or vices that people have is just something else. It's something you're using to cope with the other aspect of things. It has nothing to do with that.
So, so what do you think you were trying to numb or you're trying to escape covering the addictions? Whether it was, listen, we can, I gotta say, I was an addict myself. I
Yeah.
mean, most people would think of drugs. I was a sex addict for
Right.
sure. And
Yeah.
I also was a gambling addict.
Yeah.
And I definitely cigarette addict. Like I smoked cigarettes
Yeah.
like crazy. That was kind of part of my numbing.
Yeah.
And also work. I was a workaholic. I just worked
Yeah.
all the time because I didn't want to be home.
Yep.
So, what do you feel you're trying to protect yourself from, and what did you try to numb at the time with your addictions?
Yeah, listen, I have to go deeper into the story. I've had a lot of trauma, especially when I was a young child, um, and you don't want to deal with that pain. So how do you numb that pain instead of dealing with it? You do different things. You rhymed off a lot of things that I engaged in. I remember in my 20s, gambling through a bookie and just losing, and then having to go into my dad. Gave my dad two panic attacks. And I'm embarrassed by it. I sort of chuckle about it now, but I experienced those same things of dealing with this to get out to us. The best way I can explain it is, you're escaping the real world because, when you're doing whatever it is you're doing, you're not present, to be honest. You're looking to numb pain, or you're looking to forget about what's really happening. You're looking to get distracted. Um, because you may not have enough strength at the moment to do it what I believe is the right way. Just deal with it, like, and don't run away from it. Use that as um, strength to know that, hey, let me fix this, and the rest will sort of turn out in a much better way.
Now I know that your childhood trauma in the past couple of years, you definitely learned to accept it, and I know that everybody wants to change some horrific things that happened in their past. And for those people that are looking to change it, what would you say is the biggest aha moment when you learn to accept what happened?
If I think about, so what happened to me, was nobody in my family, friends, no one knew for a very, very long time. We're talking about, 25 odd years. And the aha moment was because of something else that was happening. At the time, I was married, um, and I was an unhealthy relationship. I have a beautiful relationship with her now, my son's mom. Um, but at the time, we had going through this really tough situation. Not tough. I was a real asshole, to be honest. And I remember her stepmom, Penny, uh, and she used to counsel men on death row. And I remember her saying to me, like Michelle and I had this massive fight, and she asked me, "Hey, Mike, do you remember, um, why what you were fighting about?" And I thought, and I couldn't remember. And she said, "Hey, maybe you should figure why you couldn't remember what this big fight was about." And so I went through a program, and it was a 13-week program. And that aha moment about that trauma was they were trying to help men understand about our anger. Why are they reacting this way? What's happening? And it came to the conclusion at the end, when that my childhood trauma of being abused is what was leading to a lot of these things. And then I finally opened up. I got my family together, uh, told them what had happened. Um, had my family support, and it was involved a family member, so that was difficult to deal with. Um, but their support never wavered. My dad's support was, to this day, is amazing. Um, but it was that moment to sort of trigger that, and I remember it's such an incredible feeling when especially if you're keeping a secret for so long.
Because you're afraid of the shame that comes along with
Right,
it, right?
right. I didn't like. I remember when this happened when I was 8, when I was 10 or 11, questioning my sexuality. Is it my fault? And it's not like I was talking to my friends about it. And then the only person I could count on was myself, because then that, of course, creates layers of if you want to use say shields, like all this kind of layering. Nobody's getting in. I wouldn't open up, and then you deal with all kinds of different aspects of life in that sense. And so when I finally realized in that, I remember coming home and talking to a best friend of mine at the time and telling him finally, for one of the first person I ever knew, because I had opened up at this session. Remember feeling like I was emotional. I cried. And I remember when I then a few days later talked to my family, I felt like this relief, like I was on cloud nine. Like imagine telling your family about this thing that was traumatic, and the outcomes that come from opening up that way, but feeling so relieved and feeling like amazing, like just from being able to let go of what you've been hanging on to for so long. So that was definitely and then it was just building blocks from there slowly. But then it's funny because at that time, my addiction that I had, or the drugs that I was choosing to do, did it in my 20s, stopped, didn't do it for a long time. Then 2 or 3 years later, after coming out and got sort of slowly back into it. First it was MDMA and this and that, and then in my mid 30s it got into the cocaine again, and then again you start to. It wasn't maybe, but at that point I wasn't by myself. Because remember, when you're talking about the addiction, it was very much just myself, like almost like a closet user, if you want to describe it that way. But then as I got in my 30s, it was more social. And so then, to your point, feeling welcomed in, or, fitting in, then you start doing it that way. Right. And so that definitely, that moment opened the door, to be honest, for me to continue to want to know more and find out more and discover more, and and to help me get to me where I'm at today. And don't get me wrong, where I'm at today, it's not finished. There's so much more yet to come.
We're never finished, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
For sure.
how did you end up rebuilding trust first with yourself? Because I think a lot of times especially when we go through trauma, I think the first betrayal we have is to ourselves, because it's like, I should have known better. I should have known how to stop it, or I should have never put myself in that position. So it takes a long time for us to build our own trust. So what was like, how did you start really trusting yourself, so that way you don't have to be so enclosed, and and start getting your heart back online? Because I know that,
Yeah.
especially the past couple of years, your heart's been really open,
Yeah.
and you've been a wonderful friend to me and my family. So,
Yeah.
how would you say that you started to rebuild trust in yourself?
It's ironic, when I'm with how I'm going to describe this. So almost my whole life, I was in a relationship. a lot of the time, never by myself. And so I finally, I was on my own for a period of 4 years, and I was the type of person who didn't like being alone. Like, and that's why I had always partners, and sometimes they were supposed like they didn't work out because maybe it was never supposed to work out. And so that loneliness helped me connect with myself, that then helped me connect with other people as well, because I finally got comfortable with being on my own and knowing that it's not bad to spend that time and self-reflect and sit with yourself and you know I was doing some meditation and reading, and but that allowed me the time to do that. And then I started to understand who I was. I started to discover who I was. So I started to build that trust with myself, right? And then, I started then to be able to be a little more open with other people and started to let them in more. But being by yourself, and like, it's funny, you're not isolated necessarily, but you're still, I would travel on my own. And
You still do.
I still do. I was just saying, I call them my self-care trips that I take when I can. I love them. 2 or 3 days, you get away. Some folks say, "Oh, have dinners." Man, you have dinner at a bar, like at the bar in the restaurant, and it's great. You meet people. You're engaged. You're talking. So that's how I would say that sort of helped me reestablish trust with myself, and then in turn help me with others as well.
What did it feel like when you went back and met your 8-year-old Miguel that was probably terrified? And, you know, I think a lot of times we react because our scared, immature little boy is waiting for us and they just want to be heard and felt. And what was it like for you to go back and just, take care of little Miguel and love him and tell him it's going to be okay?
That's a beautiful question, because I remember the first time I talked to him since then. And it was a recommendation by my therapist, Cherie, and she said, ask the question to your younger self with your left hand. So whatever question you want to, pardon me, with your right hand. So you, as the person today, right, ask the question with your right hand and have your younger self respond with their left hand. Because your brain will take a little more time to think about it, so you dwell in it. And I remember I did this for, maybe 3-4 weeks. Would write. I still have the journals of writing the question. It was how emotional it was, just to tell them that I was sorry, that I wasn't there for him, that I didn't know any better, right? That I had him now. And I remember it was very emotional. It's an emotional now, to feel it. And man, it was one of the best thing I could have done, to be honest, to connect to him that way, or to connect with myself that way.
Yeah. And do you feel after that alleviated a lot of your need to fill it up with unnecessary numbing agents like cocaine, hookers?
Yeah, like, I mean, the because that piece that I just described was, I was already it was, probably a year removed. I really do count, I'm very lucky in the incident that I had in that coma I was in for 17 days, because it's like I always wanted to get to where I had to be, but this was the universe's way of doing it.
Right.
I can imagine, I can tell you, if that experience hadn't happened and I hadn't put so many people and make them worry, and how, nearly dying, I would never want to do that again, but maybe that's what I needed to have happen. They suffered from it. I didn't know any different. I can tell you, when you go, you'll never know.
Right.
You'll never know. The only people that know are the people left behind, and they're the ones that are going to carry the pain and the hurt, and had nothing to, I didn't feel any of that. And when I woke up, it was like everything was reset. I remember I used to have this thing I used to do. I used to, like, this was probably, a year and a half after the incident, because I would do this all the time. I had people making fun of me calling this, because they used to call it the circle cult.
Right.
Right. But I even at the time didn't understand what was going on with me. And what had happened, I came to learn through, other involvements that I have in different communities, that this is really just your soul. And that's what I was finally connected to, my soul. So perhaps when I woke up, my soul was reawakened, because what happens, at least in my experience and for my situation or my trauma, everyone has a light that they have inside them. And they have, they're all born to be great people and loving people. But my light was put out. And so when maybe your light goes out, it closes off your heart. And then for me to have this situation happen, it opened up the heart, because those addictions, the cocaine one. So, addiction in general is it's like a vicious cycle. You're here, you do it, you come below this line, which is the base, and you rinse and repeat. Like, it's just, when you're stuck in that, doesn't matter if it's every day, once a week, once every 2 weeks, 3, whatever. For those who are struggling, it's a vicious cycle. And I remember before all this, I would get a scratch on the shoulder. Say, hey, Mike, it's party time. It's been 3 weeks. I've only finally come out of the gutter. And then that's every time it would scratch and say, hey, it's time to go. Let's do it. And of course, I would be involved in that scratch, or that little thing saying, was gone. It was almost like the soul has taken over. No, I'm not thinking about it anymore, or whatever it was. But it was, to me, that's why I think my almost dying is a blessing, because it allowed all of these other things to take place and happen and shift and reopen, if you want to describe it that way. And yeah, it's just wild to me thinking about it. And really, it's not wild. I absolutely am grateful for that, because otherwise, I don't know where I would be, to be honest. If I hadn't gone through that experience, I don't know. I can't say. I can only know what I know now, which is where I am.
Yeah. And how has fatherhood shaped your recovery? And what kind of legacy are you intentionally building for Nathan?
Yeah. So Nathan, he's such a great kid. And, in the last, 4 or 5 years, especially the last 3 years, our relationship has gotten stronger. His mom has noticed there's a difference. It's just because, I'm choosing to be more present and spend, more of my time with him and listening to him. It's, in the last few years, we've had opportunities to just travel, him and I, when we used to just travel as our unique family dynamic. And we love that time together. And so, and I've shared my experience with him. It's not, not long ago, like about maybe 2 years ago, I remember us watching a show. I think the actor was Jonas Hill. I think he was interviewing his therapist, and Nathan and I were watching it. And then I opened up to Nathan, because Nathan saw some of my, I had a psychiatric break when I was 40. That's another story for another day. But he was young, 6 years old. And my brother had brought him, because I had gone up for my 40th, rented a cottage.
That's right. It's when you were up for like 3 days.
Oh, 4 days. It was a crazy situation.
Enough cococaine and MDMA to kill a horse. And you're like,
it was crazy. And
I wasn't there, by the way.
No, yeah, I know. But but it was a really, and again, people around me, my partner at the time, dealt with a lot of shit that I created. That some would say was a wake up call, but it wasn't loud enough, you know? Um, but it was a traumatic experience and he threw that. So he knew some of the things. So I've expressed to him, because I wanted him to understand what being real is about. It's okay to not to be okay. Um, you know, and the funny thing is, when coming out of this, I've realized that I may have been depressed, and depression is all tied into a lot of these things. And I remember, and I want to share this part because I think mental health and it's become much more acceptable, and people talk about it more, of course, and things like that. But for men in general, they're supposed to be tough, and they're not supposed to be depressed or struggle with things like this. I remember when I woke up from my coma, I was a year in, and I was feeling really weird. Wasn't doing any drugs, just trying to live every day. But I remember the way I describe it is like walking through molasses. Like I would take one step forward and two step backs, or get stuck, and it wouldn't. And all I wanted was just to be the same I was before, but not involved in that kind of lifestyle, or that kind of doing those things to get me where I was feeling this great high. And I remember going to talk to one of my dearest friends, Jessie. I had dinner with her, and I said, Jessie, I'm feeling this way. And the follow-up calls I was getting was all about, how you feeling? Do you feel suicidal? Do you feel depressed? I'm like, oh, why are you calling me about this? And head trauma is supposed to have those types of effects. So I go to see Jessie, and I go, Jessie, I'm thinking of me talk to my doctor about antidepressants, but I don't know how I feel about this. Like there's a bit of a stigma. She goes, Mike, man, you used to crack lines of cocaine and didn't give a shit. But yet you're worried about maybe doing a drug that might be helpful for you. And I said, okay, valid point. So I went to see my doctor, and we had a good conversation, talked about it. And I opened up about, I don't want to necessarily be on it all the time, but through this conversation, he said, listen, Mike, we're going to find the right one. And maybe you need it forever. Maybe you don't. We don't know. And I remember this was in September of 2022. Roll into the new year of 2023. The medication finally started because we had to change it a bit. Got on it, and finally, for the first time in a very long time, I felt really good. And it was natural. Like there was just natural in the sense there was nothing help. Yes, there's some medication. And we had a plan to wean off, and I weaned it off in May of that year. And always take your doctor's recommendation. They said to do it slowly. I said, I just stopped it. I felt nauseous, head spinning, never get off any kind of antidepressants or medication. Always get off it the right way. And I have been off it ever since. And that taught me, if I ever feel this state of depression, and how I relate to it is feeling like, again, walking through molasses, then maybe I have to go talk to my doctor instead of, doing the things that are, the drugs, the vices, and to that, because that's in a way how you self-medicate. But instead of that, I'll go talk to my doctor.
What kind of advice would you, especially for men who are suffering in silence from past, maybe child abuse, what piece of advice could you give to them to maybe get past the shame of the abuse? Because I know that a lot of us think that as men, being either sexually molested or physically abused is shameful because we're supposed to be men. That's not supposed to happen to us. And we all went to Men on Fire. We know a lot of men in the community have been abused as children and as teenagers. Like, what would you say to somebody who's listening right now, who's feeling the way you did feel years ago, carrying that deep rooted secret?
I would, try to help them understand it was not their fault. It was something that happened. If you have shame about it, don't be ashamed. I find that if you're able to, if there's people that maybe are making a recommendation to try something different, like Man on Fire, you were gracious enough to sort of, hey, I think this might be a helpful community. if somebody is offering or suggesting something like that, to be open-minded. Because if you feel like you're not in a good place and you want more from yourself and for yourself, and then in turn from your family and friends, then just remember, whatever that trauma was, it was not your fault. If you got into a massive car accident, it wasn't your fault. Or even if it was, maybe that's what your knock over the head had to be. But it can't, the one thing about, if you're struggling with addiction or different vices, nobody can really help you. You have to want to help yourself first. So help yourself by just saying, it wasn't my fault. I take responsibility for the people I hurt. I want to take back my life, and I need to find a way to do that. But I think dealing with the trauma in a way that helps you know that it's not your fault.
I think you have to find a circle of trust. Find people you can trust,
Yep.
and be able to open up to them.
Right, especially if you haven't. 100%. Like if you're still holding it in, then my advice for sure is find someone to open up and just be completely honest.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do this as a sales pitch, but Man on Fire has helped countless men in this situation. Be able to allow you the space and the room to not carry the shame and the guilt of things that were not your fault. And yes, there's life where you take responsibility for things, but as a small child, and we look to adults to protect us, and then we feel unsafe everywhere we go. I highly recommend anybody to go out there and check them out. I full-fledged 100% is on board for anybody who wants to check out Man on Fire.
Yeah, 100%. I back that 100%.
And then, and also now, Michael, you're in a beautiful relationship with Marino, is a wonderful human being. How's your current relationship? In your current relationship, what does healthy love look like compared to your past patterns?
I can absolutely be who I am, without worrying or without hiding, not feel judged. And so that for me is so refreshing, because I've never had it in my life, and not because of the other person, just because of me.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anyone else. And so to be able to be in a relationship with someone who understands you and sees you and supports you is a beautiful thing. And I'm very lucky to have Marina that does that as part of my life with that. And I'm part of her. So, it's just, I'm very grateful for it, because, maybe there was a time where I didn't think I deserved it. Right. And so I'm just really happy about that.
As we say, it's good to see you, my friend.
Yes.
You, Michael.
Yes.
And last but not least is, what does integrity mean to you today? And how has that definition evolved from the addiction to recovery to the life you're living now?
Integrity is just being true to who you are. Say what you do what you say. Being aligned with what you believe in, and what surrounds you. So you can't believe in one thing and then walk the other way. And I found for myself, integrity is also tied into authenticity. And, I now feel that I'm the same person anywhere I go, whether it's my working relationships, my personal relationship, my relationship with my friends. I'm one person. And I feel when you live a life of integrity, and don't run away from who you are, and don't run away for what you stand for and what you believe in, beautiful things happen. They absolutely do.
Michael, Miguel Diaz, what a wonderful experience it has been, not just on this podcast, it's you being my friend.
Yeah,
You know? And we've been through some weird times for sure, and some ups and downs, and we were supposed to work together, never did, because we cherish our relationship as friends first and foremost. And I think that the amount of growing you've done since then has been so unbelievably inspiring of the human being you've become and the man you've become. And I want to thank you for just being an amazing human being.
I love you. I want the audience and the listeners to know what an incredible human you are and what an inspiration you are to so many. How your vulnerability is a power that you have that some people think would be the opposite, but in fact, it's not. You've taught me so much. You've brought me into your circle, and I am absolutely grateful. I appreciate you a great deal, and keep doing what you're doing. You're making great contributions to mankind or humankind, because we need it more than ever.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
Everyone, thank you very much. This is the Integrity Project. I appreciate you watching, and then please comment, share. Michael, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you? Where they can reach you?
Yeah. So listen, I have, a business and a personal Instagram. You can reach out if it's on a personal level. Of my Instagram, it's Miguel Diaz 26. I have my business. It's DNA Lending Group. Email Mike at DNALendinggroup.com if they need to reach me there. I also have a podcast, Old School New World, also on Instagram, if you wanted to drop anything there. But by all means, or reach out just to Roy if you want to know more on the Integrity Project. By all means, I'm easy to find, pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure you're pretty easy to find. Thanks, Phil. Again, guys, this is the Integrity Project. Thanks for watching.
And I'll plug Roy because he doesn't want to plug himself. Where can they find you? You can find you on RC Truth Academy.
Yes.
They can find us on Spotify, YouTube.
As the Integrity Project.
As the Integrity Project. And we cannot forget, what do we have coming up?
Oh, we have a very special series coming up in April.
That's right.
We're not going to disclose what it is as yet, but you're part of that. So
it's a 4-part series, hopefully. And it's
maybe
going to
even
be
a 5-part, depending.
It's going to be life-changing. I really think everybody should tune into that one.
Absolutely.
Until next time, my friends.
I'm too humble for this. I appreciate you.
I got you.
Thanks, guys.
Until the next one.